Lamar Jackson has an injury to his ankle. More injuries beginning to pile up for the young QB. What that could mean for this team moving forward, we'll touch on next.
And I'm Kadri Ismail. The Ravens are at 500. However, they can't pass up on the Jets. They got to take care of business because they got three divisional games after that.
And I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. The Ravens are battling for the AFC North crown. They're back in the race, and there are some juicy headlines in the division that are starting to creep up for every team. We talk about that and so much more coming up on the Ravens Squad Show.
Rise and shine, it's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. This is Sam and Joku, joined as always with Kadri Ismail and Kevin Oestreicher. The Ravens are here getting ready for a big-time matchup against the New York Jets. I say big-time matchup because it'll be the first time this season that the Ravens will be above 500 after defeating the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. The Ravens have a lot of work to do to get ready because they are a little banged up. We'll touch on that. A lot of players, including Lamar Jackson, did not practice on Wednesday. We'll touch on that. We'll touch on Emory Jones. You know, a lot of people are talking about Emory Jones since we saw the offensive line struggle against the Browns. Could his return be imminent? We'll touch on that. We'll also touch on the Ravens versus Jets preview. Get our thoughts and analysis on what could happen in that game on Sunday. But first, we let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Kevin, the Ravens were healthy 2 weeks ago. Now they are banged up. Lamar Jackson not practicing with an ankle injury to go along with his hamstring and knee. A lot of other players are still trying to get back to full strength. Rashod Bateman didn't practice. Others didn't practice. But we're going to focus on Lamar Jackson. What are your thoughts about Lamar Jackson missing a Wednesday practice for the second straight week?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a concern. I'm honestly going to follow the same timeline I did last week of like, not great. He's not starting the week, but I'm going to try to hold back as much concern as I can until we get to Friday. If Thursday he's not practicing, especially since he returned last week on Thursday, I'll be like, oh, that's not good. And then Friday it'd be like catastrophic. But Lamar doesn't technically have to practice throughout the week to play on Sunday. But to me, the bigger story here is more so like, look, Lamar clearly is not 100% healthy. He's now dealing, he dealt with the hamstring, the knee injury last week. Now it's the ankle. I mean, Lamar's beat up right now. And this is something we've talked about. I mean, the three of us on the squad show or just on Locked On Ravens or everywhere people are talking about it. It's like Lamar's taking so many hits and big ones. I mean, the Ed Oliver hit, the Dallas Turner hit, some of those. I mean, it doesn't feel good to get tackled by Myles Garrett over and over again. I mean, those things add up. And, John Harbaugh did say, and it's true that like guys play football. Football is a physical sport, etc. So like you're naturally going to get banged up over the course of a season. And while Lamar has been good enough to play in the game since coming back from his hamstring injury, obviously was good enough to play in the game last week, you can tell that like something is bothering him or, his stuff is lingering. And while it's natural to not be 100% during the course of a season, especially when you're in mid-November, I think it's a little more than that, especially considering that, the Ravens are holding him out here and he's not practicing. So the other part of it, because we'll dive into the other injuries, I'm sure, but the Ravens also have 2 games in 4 days. They're going to play this Jets game, and then they obviously have the Bengals on Thanksgiving night. So some extra rest will probably do these guys good considering that. So I guess I look at it as in the Ravens scheduling is good news and bad news because the Ravens don't have their bye week anymore. They have to kind of ride this out. But while they're going to have that 2-game and 4-day stretch, which is really tough, and that's a piece of bad news for, recovery and rest and whatnot, they are going to have the mini bye after the Bengals game on Thanksgiving night. So if anything, that's kind of like the last rest period before you got to play, every Sunday up until the Super Bowl or beyond, or I guess, up until the Super Bowl, if you make it there. And, right now we're even talking about them making the playoffs. So hopefully Lamar's able to get back in action and hopefully he's back on the field on Thursday.
It's interesting. I think part of what Lamar is going through, a lot of guys go through it, is just that in the previous years, those hits that you talk about, Kevin, he hadn't really taken those big boy, knock you down. Oh boy, is he getting up kind of a hit. And I always thought the way in which he played, it was really cool how he was able to avoid those large, just crushing shots. And it's ironic that, like, for example, the Ed Oliver hit occurred when he was in the pocket, and some of the other sacks, obviously against the Lions, he took a pounding. Against the Chiefs, he took a pounding to the point where he just finally shut it down. And so now I think what we're seeing is Lamar, yeah, not 100%, not going to be 100%. And that's troubling in that we've seen what they can do when they go to, the playoffs with a Lamar Jackson just ready to go. It add an extra element of danger if you're a defensive coordinator. But with a Lamar Jackson more conservative and not as functioning, and you add in the issues of the offensive line, I think that's where you can get into trouble if you're John Harbaugh and trying to say, hey, we're preparing ourselves to advance in the playoffs. Obviously, we're looking at the Jets. Can't look too far ahead. You got to stay the course. But after the Jets, it gets real. It becomes the playoffs. When you're talking about Bengals, Steelers, Bengals, just that alone, before you even go ahead and look at the Patriots, well, that murderer's row, that's an AFC North juggernaut of games, and you have to have Lamar Jackson all set, ready to go, and not sitting back thinking that, but a couple of days rest will be okay. Whatever you're doing, you better figure it out real quickly as far as like limiting hits during the games so he doesn't have that cumulative effect of unnecessary hits on his body.
You're muted, Sam.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so happens all the time. But the Ravens have offensive line issues in the second segment. We'll be talking about Emory Jones, but they're not just Lamar Jackson dealing with injuries. We know the offensive line is also dealing with injuries. Ryan Stanley didn't practice. He had an illness today, so we expect that illness to hopefully be okay before that game against the Jets. Angie Voorhees out with a foot injury. Did not practice for that Wednesday practice. Other injuries, Roquan Smith out with the hamstring injury. Keon Martin, who had a great game against the Browns. He's out with a rib injury for that Wednesday practice. Isaiah Likely has a calf injury, did not practice. Lamar Jackson, we talked about the ankle injury. Marlon Humphrey returning from that pin in his finger, limited in his practice. The only full participant on the injury report was Justice Hill, who had that toe injury but was a full participant in practice. Kyle Hamilton, somebody who was all over the field for the Ravens on Sunday, did not practice with a shoulder/groin injury, and we all know Rashod Bateman is dealing with that high ankle sprain. So the Ravens had, a couple of weeks ago, a very healthy slate, 0 injuries to note, and now they're getting a little more banged up. And that's something that happens towards the end of the season, but you hate to see it now when it's so critical for the Ravens to win those games. Now, with Kyle Hamilton out with an injury here. I say out, but we don't know. He may play, he may not play. We don't know. But for Wednesday, he did not practice. Where are your concerns, Q, with Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith, 2 stalwarts of that defense, potentially not being on the field on Sunday?
Well, I mean, I just think that you have no shot if you don't have Kyle Hamilton out there and Roquan. And I'm not even trying to, make it like some kind of like, oh my God, look what Q is saying. No, you just don't have a shot, period. Okay? Like, let's just say it. But I also know that the way in which this season has gone, for them to be able to miss a Wednesday practice, I'd rather have them miss a Wednesday practice, rest up for Thursday and Friday, and then, hey, let it loose on Sunday. They don't need to be out there. They need to take the mental reps, and they need to recover. That's the bottom line, period, end of discussion. Yeah, both guys are just playing their best right now, and you don't need them out there in practice. I would say you would need Lamar Jackson out there in the realm of this. The timing, the rhythm, the energy, That's where Lamar Jackson comes into play. Defensively, it's a different animal once the season starts up. You got your indie period. You're going to have your, group install. You'll have a little 7-on-7. But, you know, Kyle and Roe, they've seen all those different periods. You have your team period, you know, rest it up. I promise you, I've seen it for going way back, even into my day, where a Ray Lewis, an Ed Reed, gosh, even into an Eric Weddle to just different guys. They're experienced. They don't need to worry about that Wednesday practice. It's a different animal defensively during the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to wait and see. I mean, Hamilton. I mean, he kind. It feels like Hamilton has a lot of those. Like he gets banged up during the game. I mean, he was hurt during the game. I mean, you could tell he was doubled over in pain. It was his arm or something like that in this one. I mean, we've seen him suffer injuries throughout games really over the course of his career, and then him just kind of come back. He's like the ultimate warrior. Like he has all these things. He gets banged up, and then he's back like the next. He's like writhing in pain, then he's back on the field 2 plays later. You're like, man, that guy, he's a dog out there. Like he's tough. And so with him being on the report with the shoulder, I mean, I get it because that's what we saw him suffer in the game on Sunday. But again, Thursday is going to tell us a lot more about these injuries, but then we also saw, like, for example, I'm really glad that Mike Green isn't even on here at all anymore, with the ankle thing that he was dealing with over the course of the later part of last week. We're just going to have to see because it's tough to see some of these lingering things like Roquan with the hamstring. Yeah, that's a lingering thing. And you're just kind of wondering, like, all right, the way that Roquan's played, and you talked about it with Hamilton and Roquan, like we've seen this Ravens defense without Kyle Hamilton, and it's not good. I mean, he is important to the defense like Lamar is to the offense, and those are like your 2 most important players on either side of the ball. So we're going to have to see. I mean, Wednesday is, and Harbaugh talked about it, he's like, guys miss practice on Wednesday, rest and whatnot, with the extra rest that you're probably going to need before playing 2 games in 4 days, and guys are all banged up. It's just, I do miss where we were a couple weeks ago. I wish we were back having our conversation. Man, no injuries. Look at the report. There's nothing even to say on the injury report. And now we're kind of back to, all these guys are dealing with stuff. So hopefully it's not enough to hold them out, because they're going to need all hands on deck for the Jets, a team that, look, you should be able to get by against, but this is the NFL. These are professional football players. And like we saw in week 11 against the Browns, against an offense that didn't really have a lot going for them, that Browns defense almost single-handedly carried them to a win. So got to make sure everybody's healthy. But again, don't risk it, right? If there is an injury to a guy, it can be Lamar, Kyle Hamilton, Roquan, whoever, and there's a chance for it to get worse if he's out there and playing, just rest him. This would be the week to do it too, by the way, because you don't want to have that happen where it's like a guy plays on Sunday with an injury and then that injury gets like a little bit worse and you have to turn around and play on Thursday night. You're like, well, we need you for this divisional game. Like if we're looking at the next 2 weeks and yes, there's one of those 2 games they have to miss, rest them against the Jets and have them come back against the Bengals. I mean, that's the hope, hopefully, for a lot of these guys. Like, for example, Bateman's injury, which he said was a high ankle. If he has to miss another week to get him ready for Thursday night, and he could maybe play on, and I don't know any of this information, but I'm just saying, like, if he could play on Sunday, but you want to hold him out and be 100% cautious to have him play in the Thursday night game, then that's something. That's kind of like what they did with Lamar, I guess, right? And if you think about it, with, didn't play against Chicago, but then he came back from Miami. So something along those lines for these guys. Don't risk it. Hopefully they'll be back on the field on Thursday and it'll be a non-talking point at that point.
We're hoping for it. I hope for sure that he plays at least, he's definitely going to play against the Bengals. You can't miss that Bengals game. But if that means keep him out from the Jets game, we'll do it. I think he plays. I think they're just going to be resting him. I think it'll be making national news, and then Ian Rappaport or somebody would have had the scoop by now if Lamar Jackson was really not going to play on that Sunday game. So I think he'll be out there. I think it's more of resting like they did last week. Hopefully I'm right, because the Ravens, even though they're 5-5, the job's not done. You got to keep stacking wins. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about who can come in and save Lamar Jackson in this offense, protect your QB, there's a guy that everybody's talking about, and Emory Jones. We've been talking about him very much so throughout this season here on the show. John Harbaugh has some interesting comments about Emory Jones, and I mean he could potentially be seeing the field sooner rather than later. We'll discuss it here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits, reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes the first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. I've noticed that simply talking things through, even for a few minutes, helps me clear my head and get me back on track. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon, because taking that first step towards support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? What's going on, Ravens flock? We're back here at the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, talking Ravens football 24/7. This show is on twice a week on Wednesdays. That's tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And after every Ravens game, that next one upcoming against the New York Jets, where hopefully the Ravens climb up from that obscure spot under 500 to 500 to finally over 500 with a chance to retake this division for the third time in a row. So the Ravens had a lot of difficulties stopping Myles Garrett. He's been all over the internet. He is potentially going to be breaking that sack record. And some of that's because the Ravens were unable to contain him. Daniel Faalele, Angie Voorhees, two names Ravens fans know very well. I think they might be the two most famous guards in the history of Ravens football. No one knows guards quite like the Ravens know guards because of the way they have been performing over the last, couple of years now, actually. Now, Emory Jones, a guy the Ravens drafted out of LSU, injured, didn't get any training camp, mini camp. You've talked about how he has been, not had a lot of time to get acclimated to the NFL, has had a few practices with this team. John Harbaugh has some interesting comments about Emory Jones, stating he's made very good progress, very quick progress. It's only been about 3 to 4 weeks. I would say he's made excellent progress, and he's getting pretty close to being ready to play. When you hear those comments, Q, what do you think is going through the heads of the Ravens front office or the Ravens coaching staff? Do you think there's a real chance that we could see Emory Jones out there, or is he just saying that he's potentially ready to potentially be a backup or emergency guard if necessary?
Yeah, something has to change. I mean, that's the bottom line. We know that this is not what is supposed to happen. What do I mean? We know that from a bigger picture standpoint, the offensive line has been terrible. We also know that Emory Jones had his surgery months ago. He's been cleared to play. He's passed the 21-day window and all the things. If it is a situation where they did last year, you rotate a guy in. Remember, McCary would kind of rotate in and out, and whether it been Ronnie Stanley trying to get his sea legs back underneath him, or you did have a lot of rotation with the guards and all that. I don't know. I mean, if that is a situation, I think that's something for bigger picture wise. Okay, cool. But Emory, I don't know if he's going to play against the Jets because it's the Jets. No more Quentin Williams to deal with necessarily, and he gets his feet wet. And it isn't a situation where it is, hey, you're all in. This is your job, take it. Could be. But I think bigger picture wise, in the grand scheme of it all, certainly this is a good sign that he could potentially be in the mix competitively. It looks like there is opportunity from a regular practice aspect of things to see how he does. Again, regular season practice is way, way different from a physical aspect of things than during training camp and obviously, the preseason game. So good sign, yes, but wait and see until we actually see whether it be in pregame, you obviously, once that first group goes out there, you could see the numbers and everybody, okay, here are the starters. Okay, great. We know so-and-so is going to be, we know Tyler Linderbaum is going to be the center. Okay, we know, looks like Andrew Voorhees, there he is. Roly Polioli, he's going to be the right guard. Okay, here we go. That tackle position, bam, okay. Roger, oh my God, I'm falling. Rosengarten, he's going to be on that right side, and Ronnie Stanley's going to be over on the other side, and Voorhees with the vortex of death is going to be on that left side. So, man, hopefully we got Emery sitting there saying, hey, my arm is better. Going to be out there at least rotating through. We shall see.
Yeah, and I've said this for, if people have been listening to Locked On Ravens every day, they're probably sick of me saying this little rant. But you have to put your best five out there. They're not doing that right now. Now, it's possible that you bring in a Jones into the equation, or Cleveland or Bullock, and they're not, like, they're kind of just the same as Faalele or Rosengarten or Voorhees or whoever. And it's just like, okay, they're still getting thrown around, or they're not making blocks or whatnot. But at least you said that you tried it if you do that, because it just feels like they're playing favorites right now. And honestly, the more that this goes on this way with the comments from John Harbaugh and a lot of the defense of the group, and I'm gonna I talk about this on the show for tomorrow morning for Locked On Ravens. But the more I think about it, the more I'm just psyching myself into they're just doing this huge smoke screen and they're gonna make a change. Like that, I'm just psyching myself. And I've seen a couple of other people talk about this as well. I know I'm not the only one to talk about it, but the Ravens don't announce moves like this. I don't think John Harbaugh would feel any competitive advantage by saying, hey, we're switching up the offensive line this week, because that gives their opponent more time to prepare for it. I think that with his announcements and endorsements and whatnot, maybe I'm just absolutely delusional. Maybe this is just an absolutely putting the tinfoil hat on type deal. But would we be surprised if, we're waiting for the game to start and at 11:30 we get a notification from somebody that says, the warm-ups for offensive line, and it's not Faalele or it's not someone? It wouldn't shock. Would I, if we were on FanDuel and there was a bet for the Ravens going to change their offensive line, I would choose no. But there's that, the more that this goes on, I'm just they can't be not seeing what everyone else is seeing here, right? And it's completely possible the guys on the roster aren't that marginally better or aren't even better than the guys. But I have a very hard time believing that to be the case. And I personally would live with a lot of regret if I were the Ravens and I didn't try to protect my quarterback in any way that I could. Because look, we're 3 months into the season essentially right now, 2.5. That's more than enough time to gauge how good a unit is together. And I get it. Like Harbaugh talked about how important it was that these guys are together and they're healthy and they've gotten those reps. It's different. But I put out a short yesterday, and essentially my message was that the Ravens defensively, when it's clear that a guy's not playing up to their standard, they'll go out there and find someone who will. But that standard seemingly does not apply to the offensive line, where what did they do with Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson and Jaire this year, and some of those guys that weren't performing years ago, Tim Williams and, Kenny Young and some of those other guys. Yeah. They say, get out of here. We're not doing this. We need to win. You're not helping us. You're out of here. But that same standard seemingly does not apply to the offensive line, which it's two different groups, two different positions, two different sides of the ball. But it's baffling to me.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know. And I saw that clip, and I 100% agree with you. What I will say is I'm going to be the optimist / pessimist and say, I think that the Ravens see what we're seeing with this offensive line, and you have to assume they've at least flirted with the idea of putting Ben Cleveland out there, because I think Ben Cleveland is the next guard up. I think from what I'm understanding, or what I would surmise, that Corey Bullock is really, lined up to be the backup to Tyler Linderbaum, and that Ben Cleveland would be the next guy up. I have to assume that after all this time, they've at least tried to stick him in with the ones, or something, just to see how it looks like, and it just hasn't panned out. I think that's the only reason why a change like this has been made. And I think that's why the Ravens have been so steadfast into working Emory Jones, getting him acclimated, because from what we can understand, he seems like a supreme talent. The reason why he didn't go higher was because of that injury that he suffered prior to the draft. I think that the Ravens have tried all they can. I'm not so sure there isn't somebody out there, even a free agency, that you bring in to put on the practice squad or something to get some type of value out. Because right now, we talked about it, I've seen some decent plays out of Daniel Faalele, and well, not really much for Angie Vorhees sometimes, but I've seen some times where Faalele stays on his feet, but more often than not, he's on the ground. When there's a negative play on the offense, just look for 77, and you'll either see him on the ground or chasing some guy across the field as they pummel your star quarterback who you've given $200 million and the fate of the season resting on the shoulders of number 8. So I don't know. I just think that, to your point, sooner rather than later, a change has to be made, or you're just throwing away the season at this point. The good news for the Ravens is they're playing a defense with the Jets without Quinnen Williams. They're facing the defense in the Bengals without much of anything. I don't know if Trey Hendrickson will be playing on Thursday, if he's out for this upcoming game on Sunday. Just seems to me that the Ravens have a little more time to get Emory Jones acclimated, ready for this offense, but time is running out. If the Ravens were to keep all 5 guys on the offensive line, that includes Angie Vorhees, Faalele, and this offensive line continues to play the way they have, Q, do you think there's any shot that this team could potentially win a championship with this offensive line or make it deep into the postseason?
No. I think if this offensive line, TJ Watt, obviously we don't know with Hendrickson, the Patriots defense, and just knowing that once you get into the playoffs, we've seen it before where, goodness, you're talking about some of the best to do it. Like, if you go up against Denver, half of them dudes got they're about to get double-digit sacks. Like, their D-line is no joke. If you go up against the Colts, man, they're going to have the O-line on skates because they're so fast in the way they just fly around up front. Chargers, maybe Chiefs will be that team you're fighting for out west. Jacksonville, maybe you might see them in a wild card, maybe, but you would have a shot at least against them because their D-line is not very good. Who am I missing? You got the East, obviously, like I said, with the Patriots, and then of course you're looking at the possibility of obviously the Bills. But what if the Dolphins get some weird streak going and they make it into the playoffs? I mean, the bottom line is, you made your bed, you got to lay in it. And part of it is you're in a position right now because you have not done anything with the offensive line. Once you get to the playoffs, everything gets elevated. And again, we've seen it from this Ravens ball club, where it just takes one series to flip a game. It takes one series of hits or tackle for losses or negative plays to then all of a sudden look like, oh, wow, that was a bad throw by Lamar. Oh, I see. Roly-poly-oly. He let his guy come through and man, he sailed the ball over a wide open DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. Oh boy. Yeah, I see right there. Derrick Henry was about to go ahead and score, but he couldn't because the backside guy, Roger Rosengard, thought and he got hit. And now all of a sudden, Derrick Henry, it just is that fickle, fine line when it comes to the playoffs, and that's what concerns me because this is the regular season. This is you're in the thick of it now. You're in the thick of you know what? 500 is just not enough. You got to win your division. If you can get past this gauntlet of games, boy, you better hope and pray that, you got past that gauntlet of games, not playing like you did against the Cleveland Browns, because Hurricane, you only throwing that out there one time. Everybody's seen it now. Okay, he's just going to do a hurricane through the whole, fellas, we're running hurricane the entire game.
There you go.
No one can stop it. Man, please. That would, oh my God, like miss me with all that. So yeah, we're concerned with this offensive line, and yeah, you best do something quickly.
Yeah, well, hey, you got we talked about it for this morning's episode. Q, you got Hurricane with Mark Andrews. You got Tornado. We can call that one for Isaiah Likely, and then you got Earthquake for Charlie Kohler. So you can run it with all your tight ends and have it be. So you do the tight end run game. But I mean, going back to the offensive line, I mean, this is an organizational issue that spans multiple areas. I mean, obviously it starts with Eric DeCosta, and Q, you've been very vocal about that, and I agree, where, he didn't do enough in the offseason to address the position in general. We talked about that. They're missing Patrick McCary and his versatility. They only drafted Emory Jones, who they knew had the shoulder issue. Now this is their bed. They've made it. They've made it. Now they have to lay in it. And so they don't have a lot of great options right now. But the thing that I heard a while ago, and I don't remember the exact quote, so I'm probably going to mess it up here, but it's okay. Essentially is your strengths are what carry you through the regular season, but your weaknesses are what eliminate you in the playoffs. And
say that one more time.
Thank you. Your strengths are what carry you through the regular season, but your weaknesses are what eliminate you in the playoffs. Now you have me feeling good about myself. Okay, but
he's aura farming.
Okay. I don't know about all that, but that's what I mean by that is, during the course of a season, you're able to identify your strengths and ride those out and maximize that and dominate. I mean, we've seen the Ravens. Their strength over the last handful of seasons has been, we're just going to bully ball you in the run game, run the ball down your throat. You're not going to be able to stop it. We're going to put up all these points on you, and you're going to have to match us up heavy on heavy. And if you don't do that effectively, we're just going to blow the doors off of you. But in the postseason, it's been they can't get out of their own way. The game plans haven't been there. The execution, it's been a lot, right? So this year, they're finding their strength is blitzing. They're finding their strengths on offense, at least earlier in the season. Like, they had a good unit there, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit with the way the offensive line has performed. So when you get to the postseason, your weaknesses are what teams are going to attack over and over and over and over again. And if the offensive line can't flip that switch, or there's not a change made or whatnot, then that's where teams are going to attack, because you're going to have a season's worth of tape. You might be playing a team you've already played before, and they have not just game tape from the entire year, but game tape from playing against those guys. And so, Emory Jones to me is he's a wild card. Like, he is genuinely a wild card, because he could look like a rookie out there. It was kind of like Shadur on Sunday, where he came into that game, and I don't think anybody knew what to expect with Shadur out there. It's like, this could go really great, and this is the spark that Cleveland needs, or it could go terribly. And, with all that first team rep stuff, I don't think I can go 3 scrolls on social media without seeing something about all the Shadur first team rep stuff. Like, that was a huge topic of conversation. But that's kind of what it is with rookies. And Roquan talked about how you can't allow rookies to go in there and do something like that against your defense. So at the end of the day, I think that for Baltimore, if they do not change something, I have a hard time believing they'll be able to go far in the postseason, because of just how egregious this is. If they were like a bottom 20, like if they were 20th on the O-line in terms of rankings, and, it was just kind of like, yeah, they're not great, but they're not like horrendous either, I'd feel a lot more confident. But it's just it's so egregious out there. You're just like, man, can they really do something with this group? I'm really not so sure.
We will certainly find out one way or another. The Ravens put up 40 points with this offensive line group, so there's a chance they can get it together. Not going to face off against Myles Garrett every single Sunday. That's the optimist in me, but I definitely see everybody's point. When we come back, we'll touch on the Ravens versus Jets. We'll preview it, and we'll probably have a special guest joining us to talk about it here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. All right, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts for a fast project? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. We're back here with the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Q, Kevin O, and myself talking Ravens football, getting us set for the Ravens versus Jets game on Sunday. And joining us here now, we have with this 1/3 of what I believe is the tripod of truth that the Ravens have tagged us, Mr. Nick Moore. Welcome to the show, man.
What's going on, guys? Appreciate you having me on.
I need some more information on this. The tripod of truth, is that what it is?
Hey,
Tripod of trust.
I found out the same time everybody else did. I think they made that name up on their own. So I have never referenced us or anybody in our group that way. So
I think the biggest question is, do you plan to continue referencing the group that way?
I'm not sure. Leave it up to the fans. See what they want. See what they like. The Wolfpack was a good name, so it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to top that. But I'm not sold on it yet. So we'll just have to wait and see.
You're the elder statesman, so hey,
you
can poo-poo it if you need to now.
Yeah, you have some pull.
I'm not so sure it rolls off the tongue quite like I would like it to, but we'll see how it hits. I have no idea.
Was it Ryan? I feel like it was Ryan Mink. Ryan Mink probably
I have no clue. So we'll find out if we get a lot of slack on social media for that post. We'll see.
All right. Well, let's get started with. I want to know, because Tyler Loop had a great game on Sunday. I mean, he was a predominant reason why the Ravens were able to stay in it. I was nervous primarily because of what you said going into that game and just going into the colder atmosphere that players had to play. And it was windy over there in Cleveland, and it was cold, and that's Tyler Loop's first time kicking in that stadium. How was his preparation? How did you guys prepare for it? How did you guys feel going into the game? And obviously, how were you feeling after he was making all those kicks and looking pretty superb while doing it?
Yeah, I think I thought he looked excellent on Sunday. He, we get a lot of practice with that stuff in our practice field, because as you guys know, and as most of the listeners here know, that the wind is pretty brutal here in Baltimore. So we get and where our field is, Q knows from being there so much, but there's not a lot of tree blockage. I mean, we have a little protection with the building, but where we practice on our field in field 3, I mean, it is wide open, Q. I mean, there's nothing, even close to there. So winds coming through all different directions, always getting in our way. So we're getting that work almost all the time. And last week in particular, we knew ahead of time that this was going to be a pretty tough weather game for us. And being Tyler's first time in that weather, and really for Jordan and I, it's our first time this year having, a significant weather going on during the game, that we all got a lot of work last week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It was pretty windy for us in practice. So we got accustomed to it, whatnot. But obviously, you guys know it. When you're in the game, it's such a different circumstance when you're in the stadium, the way the wind comes in with openings in that stadium in particular, and being right there next to the lake. It's a very difficult place to play, arguably one of the hardest, if not the hardest place to kick in all of the National Football League. So we always have our hands full when we go there. And, the Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, it was pretty aggressive with that wind, but I thought Tyler did a wonderful job with, his kickoffs were fantastic. And then obviously with his 3 field goals, that 44-yard field goal, I know it probably looked like a breeze watching on TV or watching from the side, but it was not a very easy kick to make. A lot of wind coming off our bench, so right to left as we were kicking it. And I thought he executed really well. He trusted his, the preparation that we put in. He picked out a good line for him and stayed with it and did a really fantastic job. So that was a hell of a kick. I mean, for him, honestly, that's probably the biggest kick he's made so far. It was one of the toughest kicks. I know it wasn't the furthest one, but it was definitely probably the hardest kick he's made so far. And we're going to need him going forward as the weather continues to get worse in these later games and going towards winning the division and these ending games. It's going to be hard, and points are going to be tough to come by. So anytime we get a chance to go out there and put points on the board and help our team like we've done in the last 2 weeks, we're going to have to continue to do that. He's going to continue to develop and grow and work on that. And I think we have a lot of big things coming for him and for the three of us as a group.
It's weird with young players. Sometimes, environments like that can challenge them more mentally than physically. For you, are you playing the role of the psychologist when it comes to the practice settings and then all of a sudden going into the game? I've been around so many guys over the course of covering the Ravens, and each guy has their own different thing. I mean, Billy Cundiff one time just gave me an amazing breakdown of what it was like to kick in Pittsburgh because of it being a 1 o'clock game compared to a later in the evening game. Literally, Justin Tucker, almost identical in his assessment of Pittsburgh as well. Sam Cook even saying as far as how you punt and the way in which the ball lands funny and all the different nuances. For you, for Tyler, how much or how little are you giving him that kind of, hey man, this is what it looks like from my vantage point, and here's how we're going to do it? And or do you have that, I ain't going to say nothing to you, just go out there and do it?
I think I do. I try to do as much as I can as far as just letting him know that the difficulties that we're going to face and the reality of that, those stadiums that we play in late in the season with Cleveland and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, that I've been there. I've played in those stadiums, a handful of times now, and I at least understand typically where the wind is going to play. As far as, what he does with the kicking aspect of it, it's hard for me to really dive into that because the wind affects my job a little bit, but not a ton unless it's like north and south up the field. That's where it starts to play more. But like a crosswind, like I had one the other night, it got blown off course a little bit on one of the punts. So it does affect me to an extent, but I can't necessarily play the wind that like they can because you just don't know like if there's going to be a gust. The snaps are so short that I can't assume that there's going to be a gust and try to play it on this side of his body. And then if it's not there, then it's going to end up being bad. So I try to stay relatively close to my typical target for punts and field goals. But I think what I can do for him is just like getting him to understand that the thing that's the most important for us. And I think the thing that I learned the most from Justin, and again, I don't know a ton about the kicking aspect, like the knitting, the intricate details of the kicking, but I can say from playing with Justin for so long that you have to be able to trust that if you pick a target line, that you're going to be able to execute on that target line and trust that the wind's going to do what you're feeling that it's going to do. And you can't be second guessing yourself. You have to get a plan, make a plan and execute the plan to the best of your ability. And one of the things that Justin was so good at for all these years was being able to do that, hitting a straight ball, knowing that if I hit the perfect ball, it's going to play exactly here. And I'm going to aim, right third. And one of the things we talk about is never giving away the upright. So you don't want to aim outside of the upright and hoping that the wind's going to pull it back in. You want to give yourself a chance that if the wind dies down or it's not there, or something happens while the ball is in the air, you're still going to give yourself a chance to make a kick. And I think those are like the small things that I can help him with, as far as he needs to continue to work on getting good football. I thought the 44-yarder he hit the other night was a really great step in for him to have that first kick moving in the direction of, hey, the wind's going to start to pick up as we keep playing. It's like, that's the ball right there. Put that in your memory bank. Remember that every time we get in this situation, doesn't matter if it's a 44-yarder, a 50-yarder, a 30-yarder, like, you hit the perfect ball. You have to trust that you're going to be able to do that, and then you're going to be able to execute the plan that you and Randy Brown and Jordan come up with, going into that particular moment, because we can all feel the wind when we're out there, and it's easy to be like, oh, this is right to left, but then it's like, okay, how much is it, and all that stuff. So there's a couple things that they do with the lean of the holds and all that kind of helps dial down some of that wind. But I think Tyler's done a great job so far. We've had a ton of practice with it, as far as doing it at our practice facility. And then we had some really good experience this past week in Cleveland to kind of get us going into what's going to be, because that was pretty aggressive. That weather was, it was cold, it was windy, and it was a pretty rough first game for him. And I thought he did a hell of a job of going out there, getting I think he got 11 points for us on Sunday night. And those are huge. And especially in these division games and these games we get going down the stretch. And every time we can get, even if it's a PAT, man, those things are not guarantees, especially when we got Green Bay and we got Pittsburgh at the end of the season. Like, PATs are not a guarantee. So we have to execute all the time. And anytime we can give our team points, it's huge for us. So we're going to continue to work on that, continue to get better. And I think Tyler's going to continue to perform at the level. And he's going to learn, how to play in this environment, play in these weather conditions, play on these different field surfaces. And he's just going to continue to get better.
Yeah. Do you have time to hang out with us a little after the break, Nick?
Yeah, I can get one more section.
Cool. Awesome. All right.
Nice.
Well, then I have a question for you after the break. I know we got to get to the break, so I have a question for you after the break.
All right, let's take that break, and we'll be back here in the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We are back here at the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam Njoku, Kadri Ismail, Kevin Oestreicher, and Ravens long snapper Nick Moore talking Ravens football as we get ready for the New York Jets. Kevin, I know you had a question, so I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away.
I do. Thank you, Nick. I know you've talked about it already, but I need to get your reaction to the Mark Andrews hurricane play here on this show. And also to the fact that man was moving 20.09 miles. I mean, I know that, like, you see him in practice every day. You see working on stuff, but that play itself, we know that, it essentially won you guys the game at that point. But when it was 4th and 1, did you kind of have an inkling, all right, this is where this is going to show up? And when it was running, when he was moving, I mean, did you know he could move like that?
I think Mark gets overshadowed a little bit as a tight end. You don't see him. He runs these very precise routes, and it's a lot of in-breaking stuff, and he has to kind of fit in these zones. So you don't get to see him kind of open it up like we saw on Sunday. Sorry, my dog is over here.
Oh, no, you're good.
We don't get to see him open it up like that often. So, that Joker was moving. I think he hit his PR top speed in a game in Baltimore. So that was crazy to see. But that play, I had seen it. I think I was talking about it on Rip Show the other day. I had seen him work on that in practice, because that formation we've ran for a couple years now, and it's been basically we had the one play. We had just the tush post, the quarterback sneak with Mark at QB, and we just we haven't had a ton of success. I mean, I think about we got stopped, several times in a row against the Rams, in there on the 1, 2, 3 yard line, and across the league, I feel like because Philly has made that play so mainstream and like such a big deal, people are trying to get rid of it and all this stuff, and I think teams are starting to kind of figure out how Philly's been able to be so successful at it over these years. And people are just so much more aware of it, and they prep it so much more because everybody has that in their arsenal. And I think Todd Monken had done a great job. I think we saw last week or 2 weeks ago against the Vikings with the toss to Lamar for a first down. And then this is just another wrinkle to that same exact formation. We had already shown that we got 2 different options on that play, and now we add in that third one. And I just feel like no one was really ready for that. I feel like that was the first play of its kind, from that formation. And I'd seen it in practice, and it got our defense in practice. So I was when we went out there to line up, I was basically right there down the line of where the line of scrimmage was, because I wasn't sure if we were going to kick a field goal or do whatever punt or whatever we were going to do. And so I was ready to go in. So I got a front row seat to watch that majestic play that they put together, and Mark was able to, and really all the guys. I mean, Charlie had a great block, Pat had a great block, offensive line did a great job. Everybody sold the quarterback sneak, and then Mark squeaks out there on that right side and is able to put the afterburners on and blow past that. I think it was 49, the linebacker, and ultimately won. That game pretty much put it away, or put us in the lead, and then defense was able to hold on to that lead. So it was a huge play for us in the game, and I think it ended up winning us the game.
When you look at moving forward, obviously the Jets are a team that some would consider, hey, they're trying to figure things out for themselves. How do you stay level-headed, recognizing that every single game, especially the way the AFC is kind of shaking out, but how every single game you have to bring your quote-unquote A game. You can't take it for granted. How do you manage that, recognizing that you have a team like the Jets that are coming into town and the potential for taking them for granted?
I think this year for us, it's been pretty easy as of late to understand the importance of every game. I mean, at 1-5, you're basically in fight or flight for the rest of the season. In the back of your head, if we lose 1 or 2 more, chances of us going to the playoffs and winning our division goes significantly down. So we've been on our P's and Q's since the bye week. Guys have been locked in, not taking any of these opportunities for granted, because we know how good of a team that we are. And we were all disappointed in our performance early on in the season. Obviously, nobody thought that a 1-5 start was what we were going to do this season. It's it, dude. If we mess around and lose 2 or 3 more games, it's over for us. We're going to go home early January, and that's not what any of us want. We all have expectations of, making a playoff run, winning our division, making a playoff run, and ultimately getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. But, in this game in particular, the Jets are sitting at I believe 2-8, and for me, it's like they got the number 1 special teams unit in the NFL. So it's pretty easy to kind of be locked in on, my job, because those boys are hunting on special teams. They got who a lot of people say is probably one of the top 3 special teams players in the entire NFL. And I don't know his name. I know his jersey number is 37. That dude's a dog. But they've had a great special teams unit. We played them a couple years ago, and they dialed up some pretty good stuff on the punt return side of the ball. They got a dynamic returner. I think they ran a kickoff back and a punt back in the same game to beat, I think, the Browns, if I'm not mistaken. They did somebody a couple weeks ago, I think. And they've had a lot of their returners. One of the best returners we're going to face this season. He's had a couple touchdowns already. He's scored a lot of touchdowns in his career. And so we're going to have our hands full on the special team side of it. And also I found out that they have one of the best, I think Harb said they had the best rushing offense or something with the run game. They had one of the best run game offenses in the entire NFL. I know Justin from college. I played with him his first year in college at Georgia. He's a very dynamic runner. I know he hasn't had a ton of success throwing the ball this year, but he is still he's a Mack truck running the ball, and he's a very big threat to a lot of defenses. And he's had a tough time because they haven't been able to throw the ball. They've kind of, once they stop the run and force them to get into these must-have pass situations, it's been tough for them to be successful. But, in the NFL, Q, as you know, playing, it doesn't matter, man. Your record, obviously it matters for making the playoffs and things like that. But any given Sunday, man, these guys are professional athletes. They're the best of the best. All these dudes are freaking, high draft picks, first rounders. They've all been playing for a long time. They just quite haven't figured it out as a team, but we're not going to take anything away from them as individual players and them collectively, because they can win football games. They just haven't done it at a high rate, and they're still a very effective team. It's so important for us to get this win, get to 6-5. Then we're looking at tied for the division. I'm not sure if Pittsburgh's on a bye this week or not, but they're
playing.
No, they're not.
Okay, so they're sitting at 6-5. We're at 5-5. We get this win. We can continue to build the momentum that we've been building the last 4 weeks, and moving down this stretch where we're going to have 3 straight division games after this. I mean, this is the most important game because it's the next one, and it's the most important because we have to win. I mean, that's just the reality of our situation. If we're trying to achieve the goals that we set out to achieve back in September, this is a must-win for us.
Certainly is. They have to get the job done. I think the player you're talking about for the Jets, Quantez Stiggers, he is a beast. He is a beast. Yeah, so
he is.
I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. We're going to, before we close out the show, I want to get predictions from each of you. Nick, I'm not going to let you do predictions, but I'm going to let you start, and I want you to tell me one player you want to see ball out in this upcoming matchup, other than yourself.
I'm biased. Special teams, we got Chandler Martin making his second start. He plays left guard on punt. He ended up making a tackle last week in his first game against Cleveland. Unfortunately, Jay Higgins went down with the knee injury against the Vikings. But next man up in this league, and Chandler has done some really awesome and great things on practice squad. And he's given me a ton of trouble personally, and he's given a lot of our special teams guys a ton of trouble. And I know he's been a beast for the offense to deal with during practice. So I'm excited to see this guy get his chance. I think he's going to be a hell of a player for us. And for him to continue to show up the way he did last week, now that, Coach Harbs always says you get your most growth as a player from your first game to your second game. And you get all the butterflies out your first game. He got kind of knocked everything out, played a division game on the road in a cold environment. Like, it's a tough deal for a young kid to make his first game. I know, because I did the same thing in Pittsburgh. And so for him, I want to see him continue to do the things that he's shown me and all of us for the last 10 weeks, continue to do that stuff and show up in the game in a big way and make an impact, because he's going to be a fantastic player for a long time in this league. And I'm excited to see what he's able to do going into his second game.
Nice.
All right. I guess I'll go first. I think that the Ravens should be able to pull this game out. Obviously, like Nick was talking about, got to be on the P's and Q's. And, I have confidence. I think the way that the team's been able to turn it around, and the Jets, you can't overlook them. But I think that if, they're able to Ravens can just play their game, I think they'll have a good opportunity to win this one, get above 500 and keep doing their thing. So I'm excited for this game. First time, I guess the Jets just love throwing former Ravens quarterbacks out there against the Ravens. It was Joe the last time that Ravens played the Jets, and now it's going to be Tyrod. So I guess it's the Ravens reunion tour here is what's going on. So, but I think this will be a fun game, and I'm hoping the Ravens can pull it out.
Well, I will say this, that I was saying they got to get to 500. They're at 500. I look at the landscape of the AFC, and I will say you cannot sleep on anyone. Nick, I didn't realize that I had the number one special teams unit, so that does play a huge role as far as field position is concerned. One guy that clearly you snap to him all the time, and that's Jordan Stout. He has had an amazing game. I'm looking for him, or amazing season, excuse me. I'm looking for him to have an amazing game. So those beautiful inside of 20 kicks are going to come to fruition, so we can still see Trenton Simpson come off the edge and rush the passer. At the same time, I think bigger picture-wise, this is a game where the offensive line, however it shakes out, if they put in Emory Jones to get his feet wet, however it shakes out, this needs to be the establishment game of, look, we're in the rearview mirror of all the bad stuff happening. We're looking forward, and it starts with the Jets. I think that they absolutely get it done and frustrate a Tyrod Taylor from a defensive standpoint, special team standpoint, handle their business, and corral dynamic returner. Bruh, Do I have to give a score right now? Can I
You
just
don't
say
have
it?
to.
You
You
don't have to if you don't want to.
They're gonna win. They're gonna win. I gotta still analyze it before I break it all down for my television side of things and give them the score.
Yeah, I think the Ravens are going to win too. I'm hoping for a big game from LeJohntay Wester. I know he struggled with that muff punt earlier, and I know that can shake your confidence. I want him to get back at it and be that dynamic guy because being a returner is no joke. So I know he's going to come back and come on strong. So again, appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Locked On Ravens Squad show. For myself, Kevin Q, and Nick Moore, thank you for joining us. Hopefully we get the entire Tripod of Truth here one day to talk some football. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep that Tripod of Truth name going. Just Tripod of Trust.
Okay.
Sorry, Tripod of Trust.
Trust. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get that thing going and keep it going. But again, appreciate you guys here for joining us here on the Locked On Ravens Squad show. And we will see you on Sunday after the Ravens hopefully take down the Jets.